Hey everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of Strategy Shorts. In this series, I'm going to cover a number of strategic concepts and technical tricks that you can use to improve your play or further understand Duelyst as a whole. Each episode is going to be about 10 minutes long and discuss a single idea in depth. The intention is that each time you'll either learn about something you've never seen before or get a new perspective on an old pattern. I'm going to start off with one of the most famous concepts in all of card gaming. Who's the Beatdown? This is named after an article written by Mike Flores, Magic the Gathering pro player, in I think 1999, where he outlined this idea that in any given match or any given board state, one player is the Beatdown and is trying to push for the end of the game and kill their opponent, and one player is the Control, who is trying to stabilize and limit their opponent's options. This dichotomy frames a lot of in-depth strategy and a lot of overall strategy for like how you should approach a given matchup, how you should approach a game you're in. And even, do I attack on this board? Those kind of questions. So it's really, really important. It's very fundamental. How it manifests in Duelyst is much the same. Should I trade with my opponent's minions or go face? Should I use a removal spell or develop a new minion of my own, leaving my opponent's minion up? Should I play 2 2-drops on turn 1 or play a 2-drop and kill my opponent's 2-drop? These kind of decisions are basically, am I being very proactive or am I being very reactive? The Beatdown or the Control? So why should I care? Like, what's the point? Deciding correctly and identifying which role you're meant to take in any given board or any given matchup will vastly increase your win rate. I know it sounds like, magic potion, like, oh, I'm the Beatdown, suddenly my win rate goes up by 10%, but actually, it underpins a surprising number of decisions. I outlined a few basic ones, do I attack? Do I make trades? Do I go face? But it's other things like, my opponent's on 12. Should I Phoenix Fire them? Are we at that point in the game? Much more complicated things that are easier to think about and easier to understand if you've considered which role you're in. The other thing is that this role changes, and understanding that is the real meat of Flores' article. It's not just, I'm the Beatdown in this matchup, I should attack all the time. It's more, I started out the Beatdown, but now my opponent's played something that I can't race, or my opponent's threatening to burst me down in a couple of turns if I'm incautious. So now I should switch roles, let them beat the Beatdown, and now I'm going to be the reactive player. And that's the real trick, the real crux of it. So let's start with some basic examples. Suppose I'm playing, let's say, aggro Fae, right? I'm playing face Fae. I'm going to be on the Beatdown almost all the time because my entire deck is fragile cards that are just intended to get in as much face damage as possible. I'm playing things like Flameblood Warlock, I'm playing Snowpiercer, I'm playing 2-drops that are designed to attack as much as possible, things like Crystal Cloaker. I'm playing Cryptographer so that I can get more Warbird activations. Anything to just get my opponent face. I have not much card draw. I have very little onboard advantage, like my minions are fragile and small. They're not going to get advantageous trades. So if I'm forced into a game where I'm deliberately killing my opponent's things, I'm wasting my resources, right? These resources are designed to go face. I'm not going to get very far by trading with my opponent. So I should be on the Beatdown. In almost every board, playing aggro Fae, I'm trying to kill my opponent and ignore their stuff. The whole idea is they're going to be on the control side of things. They're going to have to respond to me because I'm just going to smack them in the face. And if they don't respect that, they just die. They get burned out. Or, we get to the point where they stabilize and retreat to lick their wounds, and I just kill them by clicking Warbird every turn. So, aggro Fae is on the Beatdown almost every time. Contrast that with something like Heal Lionar, right? Especially the bigger lists that play stuff like Zir and Alex. If you're playing Heal Lionar, you have a lot of quite passive cards in your deck and cards that require setup. You have fragile minions that combo with other things that take a long time to put together. Things like Sunforge Lancer, which requires you to stick it and then heal things. Healing things generally requires you to trade with minions, right? You can attack your opponent, but it's better if you're trading with your opponent's minions, healing your minions back to full so you still have a board and they don't. And now your Sunforge Lancer is triggering and you're snowballing an advantage. So against a more aggressive deck, you're the Control. You're going to sit there, try and make as efficient trades as you possibly can, keep your life total topped off with maybe Sunbeam Elixir, if you're playing that. Sundrop Elixir. There you go. Sundrop Elixir, as a Herald, Scintilla, maybe Circle of Life. These cards all protect you. And don't pressure your opponent, right? You're not going to attack your opponent efficiently by playing as a herald. As a herald doesn't trade very well, it doesn't get much damage, but it protects you. So you can rely on these protective cards to stabilize and stay alive through the mid game until later on, you've drawn some extra cards off Trinity Oath, you've buffed Zeran up, like 5 attack maybe off a Sunforged Lancer, so you can get a lot of swing power later on. Now you've got more cards in your opponent, you've got a big general that can eat things for free, while still healing herself to not die, so you can avoid burst. So you're playing the control role, because given time, against an opponent who's doing normal play minions and attack type stuff, you'll win. All you need to do is survive, protect yourself, heal yourself, make efficient trades with your minions, and set up your synergies. So in that matchup, Zeran is the control. But now if you turn this around and if you imagine Tempo Zeran is playing against something like Alabaster Titan or Doom Cassiva, probably the most extreme example. These decks have a domineering late game. Titan itself or Doom are just really, really hard cards to actually physically beat once they're in play. The amount of power that a Titan puts on the board is insane. Doom obviously just literally wins the game in a few turns regardless of how much healing you have, so your normal way of surviving and outlasting that doesn't work. So now you're on the hook to be proactive. You have to win the game before Cassiva plays a Doom and waits and survives for 3 turns. You have a clock on you. Against Alabaster Titan, you have to make sure that you can beat the Titan. The best way to do that is to make sure your opponent's nearly dead when they play it. Then they play their Titan and you kill them. Or you kill them before then. You don't really have a way to compete with that. All your healing only staves off the inevitable against a deck like this. So now you're on the beatdown. And here you're seeing a bit more of the nuance in this, right? If you're playing Zeran and you queue up into a match and you see your opponent's Fae, you're like, okay, this could be aggro, this could be control. And they go turn 1, Flameblood Warlock. You're like, right, all I need to do is not die, and I'll eventually win with my more powerful cards. I'm on the control. You're playing Zeran, exact same deck, exact same list, exact same player. You queue into a Cassiva. They go turn 1 as a Herald. Okay, they're probably playing Doom. Now I'm on the control. Now I'm on the beatdown side. I have to attack her, right? Exact same deck, but now it's got to take on a different role. Now you're the beatdown. So understanding how this works really helps you sculpt your game plan in different matchups, and it helps you make decisions on the board. So here's another example from a more complex deck. I'm actually going to get the deck list up for this one. This is 8 Gates River. This isn't like a canonical build of it, this is just a build of it. So I won't bother going through a full deck tech, but you can probably, just by looking at it, you can get a rough idea. This deck has a pile of spells, and is planning on using those spells to control the board. We've got things like Gotatsu, Ghost Lightning, and slightly further down there's a Twin Strike, which remove the opponent's minions and can't go face at all. But the actual game plan is to burn them in the face, right? To throw your exact same removal spells at their face until you win. And this deck is a lot more complicated than simply I am the beatdown, I am the control, even within an individual game. So suppose I'm going first with this deck, right? I might play a Crescent Spear because that's a really good setup play, and then my opponent plays plays out their 2-drops, and I play Twin Strike and I kill them both, and I've just got like an enormous amount of card advantage off that and tempo. But that's a really controlling play, right? That's not proactive. The Twin Strike doesn't do anything if my opponent only plays 1 threat. The fact that I have this card in my deck at all, and multiple copies, suggests that I'm playing a control deck. At the same time, this deck often wants to hold on to Phoenix Fires if it can, because you don't necessarily want to use them to kill your opponent's minions, you want to use them to kill your opponent. And the way it all works together in practice is that you play the control role for the early turns of the game, where you're killing their stuff, drawing additional cards, getting card advantage, and surviving because you have like very few minions. And this list plays more minions than some, but there are decks that have 0. Maybe just Geomancer for Mantra decks. And most 8 Gates decks will only play a handful of minions because you rely so much on your spell damage synergy, on your cantrip spells, and getting lots of value off things like Blood Rage Mask. So while you're removing your opponent's minions, you're drawing cards, sculpting your hand, getting card advantage that translates directly later on into having a handful of burst. And around about the 6 and 7 mana mark, you start counting your opponent's life total. Because at that point, you know, they've taken a bit of chip damage from like Blood Rage Masks and trading into your minions, and you know, maybe you Phoenix Fire them at one point just to get it out of your hand because you're drawing too many cards. Maybe they attack the Lantern Fox to finish it off, that kind of thing. So, you know, they'll have taken some damage. They'll also probably have been trying to hit you to get rid of your artifacts. So you're normally they're on about 10-15 by that point. And now you've spent your early removal. Your opponent's starting to deploy their late game threats. You don't have, you know, you're a Songhai deck. Gitatsu doesn't kill Ironcliff Guardian, right? There's only so long you can outlast an opponent playing a bunch of big stuff, unless you get, you know, a bunch of Eternity Painters and they run out of cards. Most of the time, they'll have a draw spell backed up by 5 and 6 drops, and you'll be like, well, I can't really kill this stuff. But what you can do is kill them, because, you know, if your hand is just double Phoenix Fire and a Crescent Spear, you can Phoenix Fire them twice for 4 damage apiece, and then play the Crescent Spear and attack. That's 11 damage for only 5 mana out of hand. If you have an 8 gates, or in this deck there's a Rockadoc Terror, if you have Blood Rage Mask, even like a Battle Panda on board, Geomancer, there's a lot of ways you can stack up burst. So you're trying to play the control role, but then at some point, just before your opponent overcomes your ability to remove their stuff, you kill them. You turn into a beatdown deck in that strict sense. Knowing when to switch between them is one of the hardest things about playing this deck. This deck's very difficult to play generally. It's very complicated because using your resources wisely is so hard. Even though some of the cards, you know, some of the cards only kill minions and some of them don't, you have a replace, right? So knowing when you want cards that kill minions and when you want cards that go face is very difficult. But knowing, well, it's, you know, it's the early turns, I'm going to be on the control, I have to not die before they build up a board. That's really valuable. That's how you play this deck. You know, it's turn 1, I want this Twin Strike. It's turn 8, I don't want this Twin Strike, I want Phoenix Fire so I can try and find lethal. And that's how you make those decisions and how you understand a deck like this. The last thing I want to cover is just touching on Gauntlet. It would take more than a minute or so to go into the full understanding of role assignment in Gauntlet, because it's quite, you know, it's quite complex. You can't just queue up, see your opponent's first play and be like, okay, I think I know their deck list. Or, you know, at least I know their rough archetype. In Gauntlet, they could have anything and most of their deck will just be vanilla commons. So it comes much more down to your hand and the board state, as well as what's in their faction, especially at lower rarities. You know, things like not playing into Plasma Storm, you might want to hold back minions or develop one bigger minion instead of 2 cheaper ones. But also, in the same vein, not playing into Plasma Storm, you might decide to be too aggressive, right? You play out crap stuff, attack your opponent's face so they feel under pressure. They have to Plasma Storm if they have it, because they want to get your pressure off their back, but that, you know, maybe kills their 2-drop and leaves the board empty, and you can develop more things. Knowing, you know, if you're against a Fae, she's probably going to win the late game, so you have to be the beatdown, because Warbird will eventually kill you. So you can't necessarily outlast that in Gauntlet, you have to come up with some other plan. So attack. And in general, I prefer Gauntlet decks that can do both. I like it when you can get card advantage, but also pressure your opponent, and vice versa. Because when the aggro plan fails, you'll need to be able to reload. And when the control plan isn't going to work, you need to be able to pressure. So a low curve and card advantage is my general preferred Gauntlet strategy. Yeah, I think that probably crosses my 10-minute mark. So let's wrap up. Today I've discussed who's the beatdown, one of the most important concepts in card gaming in general, and including Duelyst. The idea is that you can assign to yourself a role of the proactive player, aka the beatdown, or the reactive player, aka the control, in any given matchup and any given board state. Based on whether your opponent's board is beatable, you know, can you trade resources and come out on top? Maybe not, maybe you should attack. Can you race them? Maybe not, maybe you should be defensive. In this matchup, does my deck have to kill them before they deploy some inexorable late game? Yes, then I should attack, I should try and race them. Understanding things like that will really help you make strategic and technical decisions turn to turn, and power up your win percentage. It certainly helped me a lot. So I hope that's been interesting. I'm going to try and release one of these roughly every week, instead of writing articles. I do miss writing, but time is a thing, and I had a bit of a burnout. So I'm going to do these instead, basically. So keep an eye out. I'm going to put them on Reddit, on my YouTube channel, and on 9moons.gg. Breathe some life into poor old 9moons. So I hope you enjoy. I have some topics in mind already, but I'm more than open to requests and suggestions and feedback. So give me a shout. Reddit, Discord, in-game, whatever. I'm open. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.